This being Shakespeare, she ends up being executed following a battle with her sisters. King Lear is left holding her in his arms. The tragedy of old age seems to be the need for status, flattery, and legacy can blind one to those that truly love you. Hey, it's Bilal, and this is Deep Sea, the podcast about seeing the world more deeply. I fell in love with Shakespeare in a shopping mall in the US. It's a long story, but the essence is that many years ago, I was in Minneapolis for work. I had some time to kill, and I ended up in one of the city's top attractions, the Mall of America, the largest mall in the US. As it happens, I loathe shopping malls, but thankfully this one had a bookshop. While perusing the shelves, I found they had special editions of Shakespeare's plays with parallel texts of plain English. I bought a load of them, and it was through these translations that I gained my access to Shakespeare. Since then, I've read most of the big plays, and I especially love the tragedies. I often think back to them for pearls of wisdom on life. And one of my favorite ways is to think of them as representing the three stages of life. So Hamlet, to me, represents youth, Macbeth represents adulthood, and King Lear represents old age. Let me explain my thinking. Starting with Hamlet and youth, in the play, the young prince Hamlet is trying to avenge the death of his father, who he suspects was killed by his uncle Claudius. To make matters worse, Claudius went on to marry Hamlet's mother Gertrude in order to become king of Denmark. So Hamlet is someone who's mourning the loss of his father and dealing with betrayal. He's also struggling to assume the role of the patriarch by his clumsy attempts to kill Claudius. Like many young adults, he has existentialist doubt as expressed through his famous soliloquy, "To be or not to be," and sees morality in relativistic terms. He says there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Eventually, he does claim his father's murderer's life, his uncle Claudius, but along the way, he loses his mother Gertrude, his love Ophelia, and in the end, his own life as well. The tragedy of youth is that doubt and uncertainty often hurts those closest to you. Moving on to Macbeth, which I think represents adulthood, Macbeth has an altogether different flavor to Hamlet. Here we have a character Macbeth who is seething with ambition. In the play, the General Macbeth, upon winning a battle, gets his ambitions inflated by hearing from three witches that he will be king. Spurred on by his wife, Lady Macbeth, he then engages in a blood-soaked journey to achieve this. Yet, even on achieving high rank, he's plagued by insecurity. He feels he's dressed in borrowed robes, and he suffers guilt. All he sees are potential threats to him, whether it's his friend Banquo or his enemy Macduff. In the end, he realizes that tomorrow won't bring relief. Instead, life's a walking shadow signifying nothing. His wife commits suicide and he gets killed in battle. The tragedy of adulthood is unchecked ambition can destroy whole communities. Finally, we have King Lear for old age. Here we have someone who has achieved it all and so now has to contend with his legacy. In the play, the elderly King Lear wants to maintain his title and status, but not the responsibility of running his kingdom. So he wishes to pass this on to his three daughters, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. To decide how to split his kingdom, he asks the three of them, "Which of you shall we say doth love us most?" Interestingly, he asks this rather than "Which of you doth love us most?", which suggests he's looking more for flattery than truth. Indeed, Cordelia, who doesn't overstate her love, gets castigated by him and loses her share of the kingdom. And once the other two, Goneril and Regan, gain their shares, they don't hold back from insulting and demeaning their father, King Lear. He slowly descends into madness, only for Cordelia to come back to save him. However, this being Shakespeare, she ends up being executed following a battle with her sisters. King Lear is left holding her in his arms. The tragedy of old age seems to be the need for status, flattery, and legacy can blind one to those that truly love you. The three plays then show the dark side of each stage of our lives, the uncertainty and inability to act of youth, the unchecked ambition of adulthood, and the desire for status and flattery of old age. All the time we try to live up to some external notion of being, we end up losing out on that we love the most. You can get more details in the show notes, which can be found on my blog, bilalhafiz.com. Please tell a friend about the podcast, leave a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @BilalHafiz123, on Facebook, or you can follow me on my blog. I'll be back soon, so tune in then.